And next, we're going to have a small icebreaking game to help everyone feel more comfortable and to get to know each other a little bit more. Then the speaker will give a presentation about today's topic, which is the application of emerging technology. And lastly would be the Q&A section. The details for each segment I will explain before we get into them. Without further ado, let's move on to the first part. Today, we are going to bring you a very interesting topic called emerging technology. And the speaker of today's talk show is Professor Hoang from Deakin University of Australia. He started working on VR and AR technology back in 2010 while studying for a PhD. He also shared with Phoenix that the reason why he chose to do research about emerging technology was because he loved working with leading edge technologies. And for the next part, I would like to invite Mr. Hoang, Director of Phoenix Japan, to the stage for an opening speech.
Okay, thank you, Hoang. And good evening, everybody. So firstly, on behalf of Phoenix, I am very pleased to welcome you all to the program, the first Global Talk programs organized by Phoenix Global Team today. And thank you all for your participation. This Global Talk programs is a chance for us to enrich our connection. Despite the pandemics, which stop us from traveling and meeting each other, meeting new people face to face. This is also a chance for us to learn from the great experts who might come from the prestigious universities or global leading companies. Last but not least, this is a chance to practice and improve our English communication skills. So as organizers, I expect that you will actively participate in the programs, ask a lot of questions to the speakers, and gain useful knowledge. Our speaker today, Associate Professor Thuong of Deakin University in Australia, is our very close friend. He has been working with us at FPT universities for years, and he has kindly accepted our invitation to talk with the students in different campuses from Hanoi to Da Nang and Cần Thơ. Today's program will be a bit more special because Dr. Thuong is going to talk with students on the Cloud campus. We would like to extend our sincere thanks to Dr. Thuong for accepting the invitation. It's already now 10 p.m. in Melbourne, but he is still very enthusiastic. And I believe that we can transfer that a lot of positive energy to all the participants today. So Dr. Thuong, thank you very much. And everyone, please enjoy the talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the speech. Now, let's quickly move on to our next activities, which is just a short warm-up breaking game, icebreaking game. Please go to a page called menti.com and enter the code you will see on the screen. We're going to have like really two short questions for you guys. As you can see right now, the code is 74291820. The first question we're going to have is a week without smartphone or a week without laptop? I'm going to give you guys around 2 to 3 minutes to give your answers. Okay, I will wait for about 1 more minute. Okay, I will wrap up the first question now. As we can all see, there's actually a lot of people can live without both, which is pretty surprising to me because, you know, everyone that joined this kind of show is the kind of person who have really a lot of interest in using technologies. But to live without both their laptop and smartphone, for me, I wouldn't be able to survive even a single day, not to say even a week. So this is certainly very interesting to me. Let's move on to the second question. Which is, do you believe in digital medicine or not? Uh, FYI, for the people who don't understand, digital medicine is described as a field or concern with the tool for technologies, for measurement, intervention in the service of human health. Sounds really complicated, but you can just imagine it in a really simple way, is that this is a robot that technically is a lot more complicated than that. I'll give you guys about 2 minutes. About 1 more minute. Okay, so we can see the result is certainly very interesting as well. There's actually more people who believe in digital medicine than the combination of people that doesn't believe and people that is not currently believing, which is, I wouldn't say, from my perspective, I wouldn't say that I cannot believe, I could be able to believe it right now. I don't think that our uh, technologies have reached a certain level that we can use this effectively, because when we talk about human health is much more uh, dangerous in comparison to other field of technologies. But this is certainly a very complicated problems. I would like to ask Mr. Thuong Hoang, can you share your opinion about this topic a little bit?
Yeah, I think, well, due to medicine, I think in my talk, I will talk a little bit about wearable computing as well. So there has been a lot of advancements in terms of sensors that can measure a lot of information. And with these data, like them alone would not be able to sort of, fully diagnose and help, but working together with health professionals using these data, they can work together and help sort of progress in people's health.
Wow, that's very insightful. Thank you very much for your answer. And this will wrap up the icebreaking game that we have for you. Now I would like to invite Mr. Thuong to give us a lecture about the application of technology.
Thank you, Hoang. Thanks, Kung, for your invitation to actually allow me to sort of connect to Vietnam again. It's great that I had greatly enjoyed the time when I was able to visit and sort of bringing our Deakin students together to visit IFPTs and have very sort of successful collaborations. And I'm glad to see that our collaboration can sort of continue in the digital realm with this talk. So hi everyone, I'm Hoang. I'm currently an associate professor in emerging technologies at the Deakin University in Melbourne here. So today I will sort of roughly talk to you about the applications of what we do in IT. So my school is the School of IT. We teach software engineering, computer science. So a lot of people think that software engineering is basically just sitting down and doing code and writing software. But in fact, software engineering or computer science is actually a lot more than that. Let me know if this now comes through.
Mr. Thuong, I don't think the audio of the video is coming through right now.
So the audio doesn't come through?
Yeah.
You should select the sharing sounds. Yeah.
Software engineering is mainly about creating software solutions to real-world problems and then putting it into operation in a real-world environment.
Software engineering is needed in almost every business, from the big systems like the air traffic control systems to the small ones like the coffee machine at home.
It's in trains, cars, programming sensors for smart homes or smart cities. It's fun. There's a lot of different things you could do.
The Bachelor of Software Engineering at Deakin is quite a unique course because we heavily focus on both software and hardware and the intersection between the two, and that's what we call cyber-physical systems.
What really sparked my interest at Deakin was the hands-on practical aspects of all the units and all the equipment they have for offer.
We have a number of specialized facilities, and one of them is the Riot Lab, where students can experience a lot of activities around robots.
We worked on something called a Zuma robot, which is basically a little RC car, kind of to give me a little bit of an idea of what it takes to build a self-driving car.
Software engineers play a role in the IoT space where we can deploy sensors that measure events in an environment and then process and visualize it so that a human can actually see what's happening.
Deakin does provide a lot of internships. You can work with other professors or even startups. Your internship can be tailored to fit you.
The software engineering course is currently accredited by the Australian Computer Society, and we also have provisional accreditation by Engineers Australia. All of the courses are very well informed by the needs of industry, so we have regular interactions with a variety of partners and they inform us how we can incorporate the necessary training into our software engineering degree.
There are plenty of job opportunities for students such as software developer, UI designer, quality assurance analyst, technology consultant, and architect.
I think software engineering graduates will have a major impact in our future because software will run everywhere.
You can work in different industries in different countries, and Deakin does show you that it's possible.
So as you can see there, software is just not like code that's sitting behind a computer screen connecting to different type of physical systems. It's allow us to do a lot of things. That's why being a software engineer, when you graduate later, it's actually opened up a range of different career paths that you can go to. You can be just traditional software engineer building software, It can be also mobile applications or other different types of technologies. There's also data analysts and data scientists working with the data that has been generated by software. You can also do technology consultants working with other businesses to see how the software can actually affect and allow them to grow the business. You can also be a UX designer. So UX is a user experience. It's very sort of emerging trends in looking at the design of the interface, the connections between the human users and the software behind it. And you probably have heard a lot about the future wave of digital disruptions that we have called the Industry 4.0, and in which where there are many different types of technologies that are going to be at the forefront of the development, artificial intelligence, AI, 3D printing, and as you can see in the videos, it's connecting with the software and allowed us to create something called cyber physical systems, and allow the software to be able to make a wider impact in many different areas. The IoT, or Internet of Things, is actually has been a very strong growing areas in which we can have embedded sensors, including the one that we talk about in digital medicine in terms of wearable computing. There's self-driving cars that become very, very popular now. And if you see the recent Tokyo Olympics, you will see in the opening, they actually use tiny drones to create the globe visualizations that has been very interesting. My area specifically has been mentioned in here as virtual and augmented reality, and I'll talk a little bit more about them later on. So let's take, since we mentioned digital medicine before, so let's take wearables. So wearable device industries is actually a large industry worth about 35 billion US dollars nowadays. And the rising trends in this area is around wearable medical devices and everyday clothing that can monitor bodily functions and health, such as daily activities. This is also have an impact in industry, including health insurance, where insurers can now offer significant discounts for people who take a positive step towards improving their health and also accepting to be monitored by the insurers. So these are a range of different devices that you can see on the screen here, including very popular smartwatch, fitness band, where their overall purpose is to track your activities, including running, jogging, or swimming, and present information in a useful way for you to make better health decisions in promoting your well-being. So this is still a very growing big industry. Samsung recently released one of their latest wearable smartwatch as well. So also in recent years, there has been a number of home assistants that come into the market, mostly including voice interface for home automations, very interesting, providing information services that connect to the internet, such as Siri or Google Assistants. So these products provide an interface for other home automating systems and also allow to interface to wearable devices as well, so that we can control lighting, control heating, also even appliances around the house. However, these products sometimes often always listen and can connect to the internet. So it's not surprising that there has been recent concerns over the companies such as Google regarding privacies of their users. So while these products are novel or somewhat useful, they actually allow us to have great potentials to connect to the digital world. One example that cyber physical systems will be including 3D printing. So this video here shows a very interesting project, allow us to, and it's very, it's quite relevant for the COVID area as well. So this is exactly a prototype systems that allow people can interact with physical object while they're not in the room. So this is made by MIT, a very famous university as we all know. So as you can see in here, this is a table where each pixel is a physical object that goes up and down in the pixels. And the software system will scan physical objects, which is the hand of the person in here, and using that 3D information to control how each of those physical columns goes up and down. So this is the setup behind the scenes. So this person is actually not inside the room, and they're actually being measured by 3D cameras. And the 3D camera can also recognize any particular shapes or any particular object that you bring inside the room. So imagine we can connect to people through Zoom, but also allow us to interact physically, even though we're not inside. This is an example of how 3D printing technologies can allow us to connect and communicate. So this is an example where two people designing objects together or also playing the games together. And this is a very interesting example where they use the 3D prints to do notifications on the phone. So if there's a message on the phone, it exactly activates and moves the phones around. To move on to also other examples of robotics around the home, if we're not so good at building robots, so we can actually allow the engineer to be able to help these robots and become physical assistants, taking care of older adults and helping us working together, as well as self-driving cars, sort of moving us around. So expanding further onto that, current technologies can already identify faces, can match images over database. There are new challenges for analyzing large data sets, allow us to stream data. And the heart of these impressive algorithm is an understanding of how data is and how to perform an analysis. So this is an example of how software engineering technologies can be an integral part of the society and on a large scale. So data is a very important aspect of information security, because at the moment we are generating more and more data everywhere. So currently that will bring up the issues of cybersecurity. How can we actually securely protect those informations and allow other people to have not allow other people to have direct access into the data. So data is actually growing faster than ever before. About 1.7 megabytes of new information is being created every second from a range of different devices, IoT device, mobile device. So that's an overview of all the different areas that information technology, software engineering, computer science touch on. So for the next couple of slides, I want to focus on specifically what I do with my expertise in virtual and augmented reality technologies. So virtual reality, as you may have known about it already, because it actually has been around for a very long time. The very first concept of virtuality was defined in 1965, was Ivan Sutherland mentioned that the ultimate described virtuality as the ultimate display would be a room within which the computer can control the existence of matter. And only 3 years after that, he built the very first VR, virtual reality head-mounted display. So to put it in sort of more modern terms to define the technologies, VR is the computer-generated simulations or illusions where the user is ultimately completely immersed in a synthetic environment. So the most common way to achieve such illusion is through graphical simulation, a sense of vision. There's other senses that we can simulate that requires different type of technologies, such as walking or proprioception. So this is a range of example of different VR and also AR. AR is augmented reality devices that has been built throughout the year. So as you can see on the top left there, that's Sutherland in 1963. That's a very long time ago now. And then next to that would be the holodeck concept from media in 1973. NASA started to create their first prototype in 1985. And then at the bottom is a system we call the Cave, which is a large projection system. So you actually step into a mini room where, you know, on your left-hand side in front of you, on your right-hand side, or even on the floor are projections that allow us to have an immersive experience to engage with virtual environment. So Google Cardboard, the middle bottom here is, it was introduced in 2014, where it's simply just a cardboard headset, and all you did have to do is put your phones in, bring it to your eye, and it's actually allowing you to interact and see as if you're wearing a VR headset. And in 2016 is when the first HTC Vive was released to the market. And then that started to bring the VR headset to the mainstream. And since then, as you can see, you know that there has been lots of developments, including the latest one is the Oculus Quest 2 device that allow us to not having to be attached to a computer at all, so that you actually can have free fall from VR. So how does the concept of virtual reality work? It's actually quite simple. So in order to create the sense of immersiveness, what it does inside the VR headset is it presents to you two separate screens. Because the idea of two separate screens is that because we have our left and our right eye perceiving the world in a slightly offset, by presenting separate information to each eye, the VR headset allow us to trick the brain into thinking the visual, the information that they are receiving is in 3D, in free form dimensional, rather than just from the screen. So typical setup of a screen is it is called stereoscopic. So stereo is two, scope is view, vision. So there's two separate, slightly offset vision that's presented to each of the eye, allow us to be engaged in VR. So what is augmented reality? So while in VR, everything you've seen is entirely synthetic, which means that everything you've seen is being controlled and generated by the computer. So AR is called augmented reality. Augments mean add information into that. So which means that virtual representations are superimposed on physical devices and objects. And mixed reality is basically anything in between. So in 1994, this researcher called Paul Milgram created what is called a mixed reality continuum. So on this continuum, as you can see on the left-hand side, represent the real physical environment. So there's no augmentations, no virtual information. And on the right-hand side is the virtual environment. So everything is entirely virtual. And you can see along there, there is augmented reality, which is closer to the real environment, which means that there is elements of the real environment connected with the virtual representations. And there's something called augmented virtuality. We don't see a lot of that, which means that's in virtual environment, but you can bring some of the physical world into that. So it depends on what kind of application that you build, depends on the portions of virtual environment and physical environment, how much of them that you mix together, that determine where we are in this particular continuum. So the next slide, I'm going to show you one of the latest example from Microsoft using augmented reality for communication purposes.
Hi, today we're going to show you an exciting new technology that could fundamentally change the way that people will communicate in the future. Imagine being able to virtually teleport from one space to another in real time. Hey Sergio,
Yes, Ram.
How does it feel like to be holoported?
It feels great to be holoported.
So if Sergio is to wear his HoloLens device, and I'm going to wear mine, we can see each other in full 3D in
what
real
you
time.
see on the left.
We can interact and communicate as if we're co-present. Sergio, can you walk around my space? Can you walk behind this chair? So we're doing everything to give the impression that Sergio and I are present in the same space. Sergio, let's just do a high five. That's
Bye-bye.
great. Thank you, Sergio. We call this technology holoportation. Now, to make all this happen, we've had to create a new type of 3D capture technology. I'm surrounded by these 3D cameras that we've developed in our team. Each of them is capturing me from a separate viewpoint, and we're fusing this data together to create a temporally consistent model, as you can see reconstructed live behind me. Now, the camera that's filming me has a Hololens tracking system attached, and this allows us to take these 3D models and composite them in real time into the real world, as you can see here. And that gives you a sense of the fidelity of the reconstructions that we can achieve. Once we have these reconstructions, we can texture them. We can then compress the data and transmit the data over to the other side. Over on the other side, a user wearing a HoloLens can see these remote participants live
is what they can
in their
see on the
space
bottom
as if they're co-present. And that's what we're showing you picture in picture. Now imagine using this type of capture technology to connect with family members who are thousands of miles away. And that's exactly what we're going to demonstrate to you right now. My daughter is stood in a similar capture rig somewhere else in our lab. And she's going to holoport into my space, and I'm going to interact with her wearing my HoloLens.
Hi, Bob, I miss you.
Hey, Lilia, I miss you too.
You coming home?
I'm coming home very soon. Let me get out of your way. Hey, Lilia, you can only hear me, you can't see me, but what are these toys?
I have toys to show you. This one, his name is Elmo.
Elmo?
And he can sing.
He can sing, wow. And what about the other one?
The other one is called Tina, and I like it because it has different stuff.
Well, that's so cool. So Lilia, can you climb up on this chair that's behind you? Yeah, climb up. Be very careful. Now I'm going to count to 3 and I want you to jump. 1, 2, 3, jump!
I'm going to pause there for a second. So as you can see, they're using what's called a HoloLens, which is an augmented reality headset. So what he's wearing here is very similar to virtual reality headsets, but rather than a complete opaque cover, it's basically a half silver glass in which they can look through into the environment and information overlaid directly on top. So it's going to go back to see, you see, this is the vision that he can see here. Turn that off. So the vision on the left-hand corner here is what they can actually see through the glass. So it's still a bit dark with the background, but because it's sort of acted like a semi sort of sunglass, because it's sort of glazed a little bit, but the information there is a display layer that's sort of embedded within the glass and allow us to see. So this is an example of an augmented reality headset. So for augmented reality, there's mainly 3 different types of display technologies: the head-mounted display, the HoloLens that we just discussed, but there is also a possibility to use simple projector. So the projector that you use in a classroom for presentations is currently being projected on a flat surface, right? But if you actually project it on organic surfaces like human body or anything else, you can create the illusions of virtual information that is not there, but is also aligned to the physical object. I'll give you an example of that particular project later on. So it's called Spatial Augmented Reality. So spatial as in space, using with objects and using a very simple technology, a projector, just simple as that. And the third display technologies are typically handheld augmented reality. Has been becoming very popular since the era of Pokemon Go. So the idea is through your mobile device, the camera will capture the physical environment and then overlay virtual information on top, in this case, Pokemons, that makes them look as if they are in the physical environment with you. So that is the main concept, the main idea of an augmented reality system compared to virtual reality system. So this diagram here is a very simplistic diagram, allow you to do to explain the concept of the head-mounted display with the Microsoft HoloLens that you have over there. So this version is a video see-through. With the HoloLens, it's called optical see-through because you can actually see through the glass. But this one, you can also create a simple augmented reality headset, use a VR headset. All you need to do is just a video camera that capture what you would normally see. And then all of that information can be combined with virtual information and projected in the form of a screen or monitor in front of the user. So I'm going to walk through some of the examples of how VR and AR can be applied in other domains. So this is IKEA. This is actually an application created by IKEA as a major furniture brand. So the concept would be using simple your phone, handheld augmented reality that allows you to browse through the entire IKEA catalog and place the virtual furniture in your room. So you notice they put down the catalog on the floor. So that concept is called visual marker. So the idea would be through the camera of the video phone and using technologies like we've seen before with sort of facial recognition and scanning, it will scan and recognize the pattern of that particular catalog. And that allows the mobile phone to be able to know where to place the virtual object. So they use the IKEA catalog as a marketing, but any particular image, photo or pattern, even the carpet patterns perhaps, can also be used as a virtual marker. A very similar example is in terms of an art gallery. Because with virtual, I'll just turn the sound off. With this virtual information, you actually allow objects to be more interactive, carry extra information than the physical artifact already. So this is an art project where you have your typical art painting as on a canvas that attach on the wall or some physical object. And because like I talked about the patterns earlier, so those arts, those paintings can act as a pattern for the computer, for the tablet, for the mobile phone to recognize and start creating information that also been created by the artist. So this is digital artists, and allow you to see in extra information to be more engaging, to be more interactive with an art installation. So as you can see through there, that's through the screen, they will see the art, the painting itself, but also additional information on top. And it can create a very interesting and engaging experience for the visitors. So this project is a project of mine a few years ago. So the concept would be, motor skill training for martial arts. Martial arts training involves a student and a teacher. Traditional techniques of instruction require constant observations and mental effort by the student to translate the third-person view of the teacher to first-person view before attempting the movement. One body combines the view of two human bodies in one display using immersive technology, such as the Oculus Rift virtual reality headset, and body tracking technologies, such as the Microsoft Kinect. Both the student and the teacher are tracked. Their virtual avatars are rendered in the virtual world and merged to completely overlay each other to help with aligning their movements. So the concept here, the application here is in virtual reality. So my research philosophy in terms of virtual reality is that within virtual reality, typically people try to replicate or simulate the physical environment. So you can wear the VR headset, you can travel to Da Nang, to Hanoi, to anywhere that you like. But the true power that I see in VR is the capability to do physically impossible things, because you actually can generate information that cannot be seen in real life. So the concept, the idea here is that when we learn like martial arts, like Vietnam, like Aikido, there's a lot of body movements, and you need to translate the information of what you've seen the teacher demonstrate into what you can do on your body. What if we can actually see virtual bodies of the teacher coming out from your body, so that all you have to do is exactly just view the visualization to match. So this next bit here represents, this is what you can see within the VR headset. I'm using stick figure at this stage because this is a prototype project, but you can actually use other sort of avatar or 3D movement informations. So you can actually move your arm to match with the blue arm of the teacher, and to ensure that you had the right or correct pose. So this one is virtual reality, not augmented reality. So another example of an augmented reality project that I worked on before is what I call Augmented Studio. So as you can see, using just simply projectors. So in this case, I use about 2 projectors altogether. And what I can do is I can actually project it on a moving human body, because I also use a 3D camera here to track how people move inside the space. And what was it used for? It's used for physiotherapy teaching, physical therapy. In America, we call physical therapy. Over in Australia, we call physiotherapy. So these physiotherapy students need to not just understand the anatomy of the human body, where the muscles, where the skeletons are, but they actually have to understand them in motion. So when you learn about anatomy, you actually learn from just a simple textbook. There's no movement, there's no, and it's very hard for students to comprehend, like, for example, a simple football kick, what exactly, which muscle was being used to activate that. So by using this system, we actually allow our student to work with things, to allow the student to benefit from the augmented reality system. So this photo here is a typical physiotherapy classroom. You can see you have the anatomical image poster on the wall. You have your skeleton mannequin here for people to actually understand bones and muscles. And people actually even use body painting to actually paint multiple muscles and veins onto the body to understand how that works underneath the skin. But without system, we can actually project directly human anatomy onto a moving body. You can also see here in this one, we actually use annotations, just draw a simple line, and that's helped our teacher here point out exactly which muscles in the body that has been used, that activated to do that particular movement. So we can set up very simply this one, yeah, 2 or 3, or sometimes can be more, 2 projectors with a 3D camera setting up in the space, and that's all we need to have a system running. So as you can see here, the interacting between the teacher and the student, they can actually point out which part of the body is currently in motion, and allow us to teach. So we deploy this inside a physiotherapy classroom at the university. So another very quick example that you can see from augmented reality is made by Quiver. So this is not my work, this is work from my colleagues in New Zealand. So the concept is actually quite simple. You can try it out for yourself as well. So the idea would be, as you can see, typical printout of a photo, you can actually paint and draw things on top. And when you actually view them through a camera of a tablet, this allows you to see 3D information exactly of what you have been painting as well here. So I just had the line that's through. So these are the barcode that you can sort of scan or quickly get the information from the app. The app is called Quiver. It's worked both on iOS and Android. And this is an example. This actually was in one of FPT school, where we actually demonstrate the demo. So the idea would be just you see the piece of paper on the table there, you sort of start painting and drawing information on top. And when you view through a tablet, you have extra virtual information to play with. So that's it. That's a quick summary of a different range of technologies and that we work with at the School of IT here, and especially in my area of virtual and augmented reality and emerging tech. Thank you. Stop share.
Very much for the lecture. It certainly was very, very interesting. And I'm sure that we have all learned a lot about the application of emerging technology today. And this information will be very useful moving forward for everyone. So let's move on to our last part, the Q&A section. So we have received some questions in prior from students. I'm going to read out these questions. If anyone else who have other questions, please type them in the chat box, or after I've finished these 5 questions, you can raise your hand and ask directly if we have enough time. So let's move on. Let's move to the first one. Can you tell us about the development of crypto and Ethereum in Australia?
Sure. So this is our school has the blockchain researchers. This is not my direct area, but in the financial market, Bitcoin, crypto, Ethereum, all the different types of digital currency is actually quite very popular in Australia. People actually been start investing a lot, and as we know, like with Tesla, when they actually start accepting Bitcoin to buy for their cars, it becomes shooting up the price of Bitcoins and other sort of cryptocurrency in Australia quite big. And our researchers, we had a dedicated blockchain research lab looking at how we actually can apply the concept of blockchain from not just in cryptocurrency, but in other domains, especially for safety, for security, for contracts, etc. as well.
Thank you. Move on to the next question. How hard do you think it is to convert Vietnamese voices into text?
It's actually not, there has been lots of progress in terms of natural language processing, NLP, which is a very common, big problem in computer science. I don't work in that area directly, but I have colleagues who work in Google Brains over in Silicon Valley, where they can easily convert Vietnamese voices into sort of text as well, because like with Vietnamese and other sort of language that has tonations sort of go ups and down, there's a lot more errors in terms of that. But I have recently used like Google Home in Vietnamese in my house here, and it's actually pick up the voices quite very, very effectively. I think the harder thing for NLP will be actually translating. So not just being able to sort of convert Vietnamese voice to text, but converting from that into English, the language itself, because the syntax of the language is a lot more complicated. So that is a harder problem that like Google Translate and other sort of translation services are still working on.
So move on to the next question. This one is pretty thick. How do engineers determine the data to connect when we use IoT devices? And we may think that the IoT device solve many problems, but it's not true because the resource to develop and introduce devices is very limited in reality. At least what elements should we consider?
Yeah, it's very interesting questions. There's probably about 2 parts in here. I'll go for the first part first. Yeah. So determine data of IoT devices. So IoT devices are typically sensors, things that can actually measure information, translating things like temperature, heart rate, humidity into a digital format. What interesting of IoT is not just the ability for them to be able to connect and measure those information, because the hardware itself is actually quite simple. But what you're doing with that information is the harder part. That's where you have to call in data sciences, AI, technologies, artificial intelligence to be able to get anything useful out of these data. Because like a temperature sensor, for example, it can generate. You can get it to generate every minute and capture the measure of the temperature inside the house or in the location, for example. But the more it captures, the more data that you need to analyze and process and allow us to determine, yes, there has been a trend in terms of temperature, and what you do with the data is more important than the fact of the data itself. So hopefully that sort of answered that first part of the questions. And the second part, yes, IoT devices are embedded systems. So they call embedded system because they actually don't have the full functionality of a computing device like computer, laptop, mobile phones. So most of the time they actually have very sort of low power processor, mostly collecting data and sending things out. So currently, well, there has been a lot of work in terms of the area of cloud computing or edge computing, where the sensor or the processing can actually go either to the server or to cloud devices. For example, if I'm wearing a smartwatch that doesn't have a lot of processing capability, it can send information to a computer, a server or computer nearby who does all that processing. And then the IoT devices only need to collect sensors. So cloud computing and edge computing is the major area that people are working on right now.
For the fourth question, please share your opinion about the continuously updating trend of computer science. This is a pretty open-ended questions.
Sure. Yeah. There's a lot of areas. So as a computer scientist, we actually do divide it into multiple, very sort of small, separate areas. And one of the things that we've been working on is what's called human in the loop for AI, artificial intelligence. So the traditional concept of artificial intelligence is that to create a machine that's smart enough to make decisions for themselves, like self-driving car. But the trend of human in the loop AI is where how we can actually, because our human brain can do a lot of processing a lot faster and more effectively than computer in some areas, but computer can do things a lot faster and do calculations and and math a lot quicker. So how to best utilize what we do best as human and what AI does best as computing, working together to make it more effectively. So that's one of the trends, human in the loop AI. So AI, artificial intelligence, not making decisions for themselves, but making a decision with the assistance of the human. So that's just one example. Like you said, there can be many other sort of very interesting areas that our colleague is working on.
Yeah. So the fifth question is, the person who asked the question has some problems with database system with a lot of new English definitions. What should they do to help themselves exercise and to be able to remember them effectively?
I think that's a general learning approach. Like I think I remember when I was in high school having to learn and remember sort of English words, and I think the best way is actually not to try to read the information and trying to consume it. For me, it was most effective when I actually use the word myself. Either as for English word will be English in a sentence, trying to create a sentence, trying to make it. For things like for terms with database and system, I think it would be better if we can sort of learn on how to use the systems and actually get it. To me, it's helped me easier to commit something into memory when I actually start to use the term myself, whether it's in essays or in an application.
Okay, so that is all for the present questions. Now I'm going to move on to the question that is sent on the chat box. One of them is, they would like to ask, what do you think about the NFT assets and what should we do to prepare for that?
Well, MIT assets is actually new terms that coming on. I actually don't work directly a lot with this area, and I think that that's quite interesting because in digital world you can actually replicate things a lot quicker. And the concept of MFT allow us to have sort of like original assets, and a regional can actually have a certificate to register the original assets. So yeah, unfortunately, I won't be able to tell you exactly, what to expect in terms of MFT, because I actually don't work directly in that area. But it's actually quite interesting to have a look.
So we have another question that is pretty. So this question is a little bit leaning toward like the futuristic stuff. Could the new manufacturing technologies empower individuals or make them more vulnerable?
It's interesting. It depends on what we like. Technology is usually neither bad or good. It's usually what we determined, what we decide to do with technologies is sort of determine the purpose or the aims. So I wouldn't say like whether it will empower or make people more vulnerable. I think that's, when we will talk about digital medicines before, the concepts of collecting a lot of health and sensitive informations, it's useful if actually being used to help diagnosis, to help improving your well-being and your health services. But there is a risk of that data being not secure, can be stolen, can be used for sort of other purposes like marketing and stealing sensitive information. So it basically determines what we're going to do with it, with the information that make it either good or bad. So that's why when we progress those technologies, we also need to progress other areas like cybersecurity to ensure we can safely, securely, and ethically collect a lot of sensitive information.
Okay, so because of the time limitation, I think we're going to move on to the last one. I'm impressed with the technology demonstrated to teach martial art at the first person perspective. Does it able to record body movement on the teacher and to replay them onto the student body, or it's just going to record the view of the teacher and replay them as if the student can see it?
Yeah, so for that particular technology, we use the Microsoft Kinect, which is a 3D camera that can capture body movement and it can save and record information in terms of their joints. So what we did was actually the former. So we actually record the body. Well, we didn't really record, we do it live. So a teacher will perform a movement, we capture that. And then if the teacher is not there anymore, that's when we replay and place the information onto the student body. With that information, the student can actually see as if they are inside the teacher's body. And we also do scalings as well. So different people have different height, different body sizes. So we scale the skeleton to match so that, the teacher can demonstrate as if they are inside the student body and vice versa. So we call that concept sort of stepping into the teacher's body.
Okay, so thank you for answering all these questions, and thank you all for a very interesting Q&A section. Because of the time limitation, we will have all the unanswered questions posted on the website global.phoenix.edu.vn. The answer will be uploaded to the website and sent through emails as well. We'll be having these global talk every single week. So I would love to see you guys on the next talk show. At the end of every single show, we'd like to take a picture with all of you. So please turn on your camera if possible and give us your biggest smile. Who's going to take a picture again? Okay, so that is it for today's show. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you very much, Mr. Thuong, for giving us a very, very interesting talk about emerging technology. And I wish you all have a good night and thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Thank you.